you're about to meet are in a rather different living situation. They say it's a utopia. They say it's perfect.
Utopia is a mindset. I didn't want this hollow life.
I had the fantasy for the longest time of sleeping with a bevy of beautiful women.
We were trying to create a mechanism for people to be non-monogamous with deep commitment and love.
There are 12 men out there who sleeping with me is going to be heaven.
I felt like I died and gone to heaven.
There were guys I liked better than other guys, but it was all right.
There was also, I'm now part of this group that is doing something that I think is very significant for the world.
You don't know what we're doing. You have no idea. You are a seducer.
The ultimate dream was to create a utopian society.
Utopianism is deism. It's as big as Christianity. It goes.
An idealistic group creates their own utopia based on equality, non-jealousy, and sexual sharing.
So it wasn't necessary that you'd have sex, but we did. Oh, the girls just loved their orgasms, and they loved the variety.
How do you go to bed with one man on Tuesday and another man on Wednesday and then feel good on Thursday?
Oh, it's very easy.
A few, however, did hope to model distinct societies that would sweep the world with their vision of utopia. Carista developed one of the most focused and complete utopian blueprints of all these groups.
I've had the fantasy for the longest time of sleeping with a bevy of beautiful women. Women who were so liberated and so intelligent that they could live together and sleep with the same men without being jealous.
I was very firmly rooted in the idea of wanting a wholesome family life, but I had this pull. I wanted to sleep with a lot of men.
You're sleeping with 3 different men, and you're sleeping with how many different women?
5.
I'm convinced that there are 12 seats on the bus, and that there are 12 men out there who sleeping with me is going to be heaven.
I felt like I died and gone to heaven. These are women I'd known for at least a few years. You know, I'd had the hots for all of them.
It wasn't necessary that you'd have sex, but we did. Oh, the girls just loved their orgasms, and they loved the variety. I mean, the basic premise was very sound.
Personally, there were guys I liked better than other guys, but it was all right.
We can share our money without acting funny. We can
like the Oneida community before them, the Kerista Commune rejected monogamy and created a clearly defined form of group marriage. Emerging in 1971 from San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district, the commune grew to about 40 adults and 2 children, who closely observed the principles of income sharing, non-jealousy, and shared leadership.
We were an experiment. We were trying to figure out just how close groups of human beings could become with each other, because we felt that that was one of the keys to achieving a level of harmony and sharing on the planet.
The ultimate dream was to create a new society, a utopian society.
People are talking live from San Francisco. Today, living and loving in groups. You please welcome from San Francisco's Carista Village, Eve, Low-Key, and Love.
Welcome. Now, explain for those people who don't know the structure of Carista Village.
One thing that people usually like to know about first is the polyfidelity part of it, which has to do with our family structure. Sexually speaking, you're relating to all the people in your family of the opposite sex.
We called it wholesome non-monogamy, is what we were searching for, an alternative to the isolated 2-adult household. The people that fall in love when they're young, maybe, have sex, get married because they've been in the same church, have children. We were trying to build a super family.
Why limit yourself to falling in love just once if you can do it over and over again?
I created the framework for what I wanted for myself, philosophically, and I was the enterprise architect.
Going back to somewhere in the 1950s, Judd connected up with the swinging movement, and somewhere in there he had a vision of starting the next great religion of the world, and he would be a prophet.
I heard a chorus of male voices telling me that I was a channel for the next great social movement that was going to happen. I had asked him, what's the name of this new movement? Carista? What does it mean? Surrender? It was like a missionary drawn to Africa. I was drawn into it.
People interested in joining Carista were rigorously interviewed about their life principles by commune members. Those that were accepted adopted a new Caristan name and identity.
Most of the people that joined me was because I created the scene. I had the space. They were homeless. They were sexless. They were moneyless except for a few. We would start out with 3 months of transitional celibacy. I wanted there to be penetration through the mind. Then we could put a date on the calendar, and we would be in countdown, and then we would start sleeping with each other.
I was only 22 when I joined, so I didn't have a whole long history of relationships before that.
The reason why I thought out that the nuclear family is not an alternative for me is that our society is changing so rapidly today, and so many marriages are ending up in divorce. So I thought of what kind of lifestyle I want to lead, and it would be a communal lifestyle.
Well, I think when I was like 15 or 16, I had like this sort of fantasy. I would look at like a group of friends of mine and just imagine, hey, we could just all live together and share each other's boyfriends. And I sort of had that thought in my head ahead of time. So it wasn't like a new idea to me when I met Carista.
I want good sex and long-lasting love, and that's why I joined.
The group at the time that I met everyone in '80 was about 25 people, and they were in about 3 or 4 different family groups. The family grouping was called Best Friend Identity Cluster, a BFIC.
And the different types of beauty that they represented, the different ways they had orgasms.
Aside from my own performance anxiety, which was actually pretty significant back then, it was amazing. But there was even more, because there was also, I'm now part of a family. I'm now part of this group that is doing something that I think is very significant for the world.
So we sort of had this whole utopian vision. That was a big glue that held us together, was that we were building a model for other people that weren't happy being monogamous. You have an instant social scene. Kids get a better upbringing because they have a lot more interaction. We thought the economics of it would really attract a lot of people. It's less expensive to live cooperatively than 2 people per house or 1 person per house.
The commune shared all resources and eventually made millions of dollars by starting a hugely successful computer company. They dreamt of funding wide-reaching philanthropic projects with their profits.
I personally took it all seriously. I think most of us did. We were going to build and perfect this model and then replicate it.
Next, the strict rules of the Caristan utopian plan begin to weigh heavily on group members.
In my mind, utopian society means lots of freedom. But the way we were creating it was very rigid.
You are a seducer. You're a femme fatale. Can't you see it?
Sex with friends. It's love in the name. No need to pretend. But it's sex with friends. It's sex without fun.
The Kerista Commune embraced sexual sharing and created one of the most distinctive utopian models of their generation. In order to make it work, the Caristans devised a set of clearly defined rules.
We've invented a social contract that defines our behavior with very clear-cut precision.
And this was a social contract that you had to agree with before you joined the group.
It was really a statement primarily of our values and our behavioral norms. Some of the more notable ones, we don't raise our voices in anger, we don't experience jealousy. Sex and affection, it was always behind closed doors.
You know, there was the most blatant, obvious manifestation of jealousy is when one man would stand outside of the woman's bedroom when she was sleeping with someone else and spy on her because he was so obsessed and jealous. So right. To say we didn't experience jealousy is a little bit far-fetched.
There was a lot of debate over how much physical affection to show each other in front of each other. When I first joined, it was like really frowned upon to hug someone, for instance.
So it was, okay for someone to like pat someone on the knee or just, pat them on the back or something, but we didn't have people holding hands together. We were trying to create an environment where not only would people say they don't experience jealousy, but we were trying to make it easier to not experience jealousy.
It was very rigid. There were very, very clear rules. This is how you create a utopian society, and it's kind of ironic because in my mind, utopian society means lots of freedom. But the way we were creating it was very rigid.
We went through some very interesting times there. We were against romance. We were against adults sucking a breast there for a while.
At a given point, we prohibited oral sex, masturbation, anal sex. We didn't have any room for sex toys.
We also didn't have permission to love in a preferential way. We were expected to appreciate everybody, but not have one person that we connected to greater than any other person. There was, in truth, a time in my family where I did prefer one man over another. Now, man A I had a great time with. We laughed, we joked, we danced, we did great fun things. However, there was this other one that I resonated with more as a heart spiritual connection. Knowing the rules of the game, that was not allowed. And I began not spending as much time with the one that I laughed with.
In retrospect, you know, Rox and I, she's not better looking than I am if you look at points, but that doesn't really matter. Rox didn't feel comfortable with me.
So I started not having sex with the one that I laughed with.
I don't know if you've ever had that experience when you thought you had a relationship with a woman where you thought it was okay to fondle her, and she didn't think so.
Somehow, the one that I wasn't having sex with, the light bulb finally went off. So when that aha happened, when that discovery was made, it was brought before the whole community, the whole group. And everyone had permission to talk about why this was happening.
I don't think anybody can stay on the sleeping schedule. This beefik has stopped functioning.
I would say, oh, I'm sorry, okay, you're right, I do want to follow the rules. So then I would start having sex with this person I didn't really want to, just to kind of subdue it and make everybody happy.
You see, if you were really talking about your fantasies...
I've gone through a little bit.
No, you're faking it. You're faking it.
Like the 19th century Oneida community before them, Caristans held group encounter sessions that were intended to reinforce the principles of the commune.
That's a feeling I had.
Caristans were expected to be brutally honest with each other in these meetings, called gestalt-o-ramas.
You haven't talked about your fantasies at all. Not one bit.
Someone would have done something or said something which seemed out of context with our basic premise, so we'd hash it out.
The whole thing started by Zia saying, well, I think I'm more into seduction than I am into utopianism. And so she said it's a paranoia, and I responded by saying, maybe you are here to seduce somebody.
Who is she seducing?
Who was it that you wanted to seduce?
Why can't you name a name?
It's got to be an individual.
Oh,
okay.
Seduction is not valid inside the community. And I feel I've left that concept on the door behind me.
You don't know what we're doing. You have no idea what polyfidelity is. None whatsoever. You are a seducer. You're a femme fatale. Can't you see it?
I probably had the biggest tendency towards infidelity in the group.
I want to propose that we think about voting on whether or not Zia has broken the standard, because I think she's in unresolved contradiction.
I don't feel relaxed. I want to feel light about it, but I don't. Let's see.
You're having a difficulty of talking about your real feelings. She doesn't have the slightest idea what this trip is all about, or what ideals are all about.
If there was a gestalt going on, Judd, he could really push hard.
There are some people here who still do not believe in shared leadership. Deep down, it's not enough escape velocity from the conditioning that, oh no, you've got to have leaders, you've got to have leaders, you can't have a community without leaders. Okay, you've got to have leadership, but the leadership does not have to be vested in a leader.
Utopian society, there is no leader. Everyone is aligned with what they're wanting to do and fulfilling their destiny on Earth, and that doesn't include having a leader. Kind of ironic, we certainly did have one, and when he said jump, we said how high.
From my vantage point, he initiated practically all significant change. Judd was the leader. I think even to this very day he would probably deny that.
No, I consider myself the scene builder. They wanted me to act out the role of the guru. They wanted me to act out the role of their father. There was a big age difference between us.
There was at least a 20-year age gap between Judd and the oldest folks in the community, and that gap, combined with Judd having a charismatic personality and an aggressive personality, gave us a real challenge in living our lives with equality.
I say this calls for dissolving the beefik. The whole beefik has to be kaput.
Judd always got his way, and he always got the most beautiful women, and he always got everything. I mean, it was his trip, and so he created the structure to serve him.
Well, they're absolutely convinced that they've been intimidated, that they've been coerced, that they were in a cult. I'm trying to tell you, this is their ugly side.
Yeah, he's probably the most self-centered, narcissistic person I've ever met.
Was really megalomania. Just about as classic an alpha male as there ever has been.
He's really like the gorillas in the mist, you know, he's like that big silverback gorilla.
I remember for years thinking all the time, putting up with Judd is the price I pay to be with the people I love.
Me too.
In the last phase of the commune, Caristans grew dissatisfied with Judd Presmont, seeing his behavior as increasingly erratic. They accused Judd of violating key group standards, openly displaying anger, and verbally attacking attractive men in apparent fits of jealousy.
We grew up and said, wait a second, we're really, really tired of the double standard. You have to play by the same rules as the rest of us. He said, you've all lost your minds, I'm leaving.
Yeah, that's the way I read the end of the commune.
They called me up and they said, we want you to press game over. I said, all right, I'll do it. Game over. We're no longer in the same beatnik. I wouldn't have broken up. I was so totally surprised. I was devastated by it all. Totally taken by surprise. Total betrayal.
After Judd left the commune in November 1991, long suppressed emotions surfaced in the group and split it apart. The commune folded shortly thereafter.
My initial reaction after the whole commune broke up was that I think polyfidelity takes too much energy and it's not a sustainable model for relationships. It just took a ton of time to work out everyone's issues. So when I switched over to monogamy, I was just like, oh my God, this is so easy.
I think the majority of the former Caristans are doing monogamy. It's not surprising at all that they wanted a partner for the rest of their life, and if they weren't going to have 5 partners or 35 partners, one was better than none.
There's many questions, you know, are we by nature monogamous? Isn't it interesting that here this group of people were so completely committed to polyfidelity, and then when the game breaks up, they go back to what's known and what's familiar and what's okay.
It certainly took away the belief that what we were trying to do around polyfidelity is possible, as well as the realization that without any larger societal support system, it's very, very difficult.
They're no longer Caristans, they're yuppies. They're no longer hip. I mean, to them, utopia is a dirty word. Really, they're not the same people that I built the community with.
I think we had this fundamental faulty premise, which was that people could love each other because it was a good thing to do, or because for any reason other than for its own sake.
Yeah, that's right.
and that you could talk people into loving each other, and it was just a very flawed view of human nature. People don't work like that.
Don't you think someone's going to do it at some point? I think sooner or later someone's going to put together male, female, you know, both parties having non-monogamy in a family.
Yeah.
I mean, we did try.
Continues to attempt to create a utopia with a new incarnation of Carista. He says his new vision has the potential to solve most of the world's problems.
I'm over 80. I have 2 girlfriends, and I'm looking for 2 more, which I expect to find through the mind, penetration through the mind. I don't have any regrets. These people gave me their best, and I gave them my best.
Like Carista, most of the major 60s utopian groups folded by the early 90s.
That really embodies the hope of the community.
Utopian tradition. That's the tradition we wish to perpetuate. Everybody that ever